Names are a surprisingly strong evidence that the Gospels are first-hand eyewitness accounts. The most common male name in first century Palestine was Simon, and the most common female name in first century Palestine was Mary. You likely could have guessed that simply by reading Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. The second most popular names were Joseph and Salome, respectively. You would also recognize some of the other most popular names, such as Judas, John, and Jesus, Martha, Joanna, and Sapphira. Now, why are these considered strong evidence that the accounts are eyewitness accounts? Let's examine two competing theories to answer this question. The first theory says that the Gospels were written by eyewitnesses or people who had a very close connection to eyewitnesses and were able to collect eyewitness testimony. It was written by people from that time and that place. The second theory says the Gospels were written by anonymous individuals later who were not eyewitnesses. They were not from the time and place, and they certainly did not interview eyewitnesses. Simply put, the data fits much better with the first theory. But where does this data come from exactly? The database on names was compiled by Israeli scholar Tal Ilan and published in 2002. It's titled Lexicon of Jewish Names in Late Antiquity, Part 1, Palestine 330 BCE to 200 CE. The lexicon classified every name attested by sources in the period, including ossuaries. The lexicon shows that the New Testament fits authentically and remarkably well with the data from Ilan's study. Interestingly, names in different areas vary in popularity. Richard Bauckham, in his book Jesus and the Eyewitnesses, The Gospels as Eyewitness Testimony, writes, "Thus the names of the Palestinian Jews in the Gospels and Acts coincide very closely with the names of the general population of Jewish Palestine in this period, but not to the names of the Jews in the diaspora." He later adds, outside Palestine, the appropriate names simply could not have been chosen. Cold case detective J. Warner Wallace corroborates the point, writing, quote, "Many of the popular Jewish names in Palestine were different from popular names in Egypt, Syria, or Rome. The use of these names by the gospel writers is consistent with their claim that they were writing based on true eyewitness familiarity." Looking back at our two theories, the data fits perfectly with the theory that the Gospels were written by actual eyewitnesses, or for Mark and Luke, people who interviewed and used eyewitness testimony as their sources. The second theory fails miserably. It's incredibly unlikely that someone who was not from that time and place could have invented or added names that happen to fit perfectly with the data that's been compiled for individuals in that area and that time. One last detail in favor of these names being authentic is distinctions between names. Take Simon, for example. The most popular name in first century Palestine, we see in the New Testament Simon Peter, Simon of Cyrene, Simon the Tanner, Simon the Leper, Simon the Zealot, Simon Iscariot, and there are more Simons, but this gets the point across. The differentiators fit perfectly with the time and place. We also see a lack of distinctions for some of the less popular names in that time period because they would not be needed. The evidence is straightforward and clearly points to the Gospels being authentic eyewitness testimony.